Jared here with CarBuzz.com, and today I am reviewing the 2019 Chevrolet Silverado. This is the LT Trail Boss trim, which is the most rugged, the most off-road ready truck that you can buy in the Silverado range. So of course, we've taken it to an off-road trail, because if you don't take the Trail Boss to a trail, you done bought the wrong truck, mister. So before we get it dirty, if you'd like the best deals on the 2019 Chevy Silverado, be sure to click down here or check the link in the description below. Now let's go get this thing muddy. So it wouldn't be a review of a Silverado Trail Boss without taking it on a real life trail. Now, some people are actually going to off-road in their trucks. I don't know if everybody's going to be doing this, but I just wanted to show what's technically possible with this level of vehicle. Now, we're on some steep inclines. As you can see, we're going up and down some pretty big bumps. Truck is taking it in stride, and there's a pretty good reason for that. The Trail Boss is by far the most rugged Silverado Chevy sells right now. So with that Trail Boss package, you're going to get the rear locking differential, you're going to get skid plates, Rancho shocks, 18-inch wheels, although 20s are also optional, and the big part of that package is those Goodyear Duratec off-road tires that just make trails like this an absolute cinch. And then, as you may have noticed, this is a very, very big truck. That's because the Trail Boss is lifted by 2 inches compared to a normal Silverado. And it just means that the ground clearances are super easy. We're going off on a trail now, like, I'm just going over these huge bumps. You can see that the truck is just completely tilted. Going over it, no problems whatsoever. And on this entire trail, I haven't even needed to engage four-wheel high. And that just goes to show like how amazing this truck is. Obviously, you can drive it in two-wheel rear-wheel drive mode. There's an auto mode that you can use, which is what I'm in now. And it'll just kind of selectively activate the four-wheel drive when you need it. And then, of course, you have your four-wheel low and four-wheel high if stuff gets really muddy or thick or you need to go up a steep obstacle. But I haven't needed that. This truck is just really easy to off-road. The one thing that you may be concerned about is how wide this vehicle is. On certain trails, you have trees on either side and you might be worried about scratching the paint. So there are more narrow vehicles like the Jeep Wrangler that might be better for tighter trails. But as long as you're on something wide open like this truck can take almost anything you can throw at it. And although this is a Trail Boss, it's going to spend most of its time on paved road. So let's talk about what it's like to drive. And it's very truck-like. So a lot of trucks that I've driven recently, they do everything they can to try and feel more like a car. Chevy realizes that there is a segment out there that just wants their truck to feel like just that, a truck. So especially on this Trail Boss model with those big chunky off-roading tires, you're gonna get a lot of road noise coming from those tires. Like you can probably hear it now in the background of the video. Definitely not like a quiet, serene place to be. Its road manners are actually fine. The steering is very, very light, pretty easy to point the car, although it's not direct. It is a truck after all. At about 70 miles an hour on the highway, it really feels fine. It's only when you start to go 70, 80, 90 miles an hour, which not everybody's going to do, but if you do want to hit those types of high speeds on the highway, you are going to feel it go a little bit light. You're going to have to put in a lot more steering effort to keep the truck straight. It's also a pretty firm suspension. It is lifted 2 inches on this Trail Boss model, and when you go over bumps, you really are going to feel it. This is not the luxury type pickup truck. If you're looking for one of those, you should be looking at like an F-150 King Ranch or a Ram Limited, one of those. They're definitely more of a comfort truck. So there's a bunch of engine options that you can pick on the 2019 Silverado. You can only get one on the LT Trail Boss, but I'm going to go through all of the engine options with you now. The base engine is a 4.3 liter V6, good for 285 horsepower and 305 foot-pounds of torque. It's okay. It tows 7,600 pounds, which is not bad, and it's going to get pretty good fuel economy of 18 city, 24 highway. Then Chevy has introduced this new 2.0 1.7 liter 4-cylinder turbo engine. A lot of people are going to scoff at that. I haven't driven it, but I've heard it's pretty decent. It develops 310 horsepower and 348 foot-pounds of torque, which is not bad numbers either. Going to get you 20 mpg in the city, 23 on the highway. What we have here is one of the two versions of the 5.3 liter V8 engine. That's the smaller of the two V8s. That's going to be good for 355 horsepower and 383 foot-pounds of torque. That can either be mated to a 6-speed or 8-speed automatic. Because we have the LT Trail Boss, we have that 8-speed automatic. So good for 11,100 pounds max towing capacity with that engine. Also good for 17 mpg in the city, 23 on the highway. And the reason why those numbers are actually pretty good is that this engine has a lot of advanced stuff going with it. Because we have the LT Trail Boss, we have what GM calls direct fuel management. That's code word for cylinder deactivation. So what that means is that this engine is actually going to shut down cylinders, so it's going to run on fewer than 8, 60% of the time, which is more than the previous iteration of this engine. There's actually 17 different cylinder patterns that it can run on, so it can run on the left bank, or the right, or the front four, or the rear four. 17 different ways that can be organized, so you don't have to worry about one set of cylinders getting worn out more than the other, and it's going to get you pretty decent fuel economy. I've been driving this truck for a couple hundred miles now, and I've been averaging about 15 mpg. That's with a lot of highway driving, so I'm struggling to reach those numbers that Chevrolet says this engine can do. However, the one thing that I will give Chevy a lot of credit for is that when this engine is operating as a 4-cylinder, or I believe it can even shut down to run on a single cylinder, I can't feel it. I could not tell you how many cylinders it's running on now versus now versus now. You really can't feel it when it shuts down the cylinders, which is pretty darn good. And then above this 5.3, unfortunately you can't get it on the Trail Boss, but they do offer a larger 6.2 liter V8. That's the most powerful option. 420 horsepower, 460 foot-pounds of torque, can tow 1,200, 500 pounds. That's a lot. And gets 15 mpg in the city, 21 highway, a little bit of a hit, and it's also going to have a smoother 10-speed automatic. If you want more of a luxury truck, you should probably be getting that engine. It's also a little throatier. I don't love the way this engine sounds. One of the things I love when I get to review a truck is that burble, that low down, grunt noise that trucks make. This one, I'm going to floor it now. Sounds okay. Makes a decent V8 noise, but it's really not that throaty. GM will sell you a MagnaFlow exhaust from the factory. You can actually select that while you're building your Silverado, which is kind of interesting. Might be worth a look if that's what you're interested in doing. And there's also going to be a 3-liter V6 turbo diesel engine. I don't have any figures on how much that's going to cost or whether it's going to be available with the Trail Boss yet, but that could be also worth a look if you're really interested in real torquey, real low, grunty type of motor. Really, I think that would be the one I'm interested in. So this truck is definitely not the one I would buy. I would probably buy one of the more luxury trim trucks with the heated and ventilated seats and, a little better road manners, whereas this one is more tuned for off-roading. But if you are gonna be off-roading a lot in this truck, if you work construction or something like that, this is going to be a very good option for you. Alright, so now let's take an inside look at the Silverado, where the interior, if you've sat in a 2018 Silverado, it really isn't too drastically different, and compared to some of the other trucks on the market like the F-150 and the Ram, which are way more noticeably new on the inside, this is very, very basic. If you like an old school trucky truck, for lack of a better word, this is probably going to be more your speed. For example, we've got our column shifter to control the 8-speed automatic transmission. None of the other trucks in the segment still do this, so if you're one of those people that's like, I want my truck to have an old school column shifter, this is actually going to be be more your speed. The gauges too are just very classic, very basic gauges. They kind of look like a more basic version of what you'd get in a Corvette a couple of years ago. We do have this little screen, little helper screen that gives us some very useful information. We do have our tire pressure monitor, air filter life, brake pad life. You can pull up all of your device settings from your phone, from navigation, all of those sort of things. It's a little small of a screen, but it works. It functions fine. We actually have a heated steering wheel on this fully loaded, nicely optioned Trail Boss model, which is pretty nice. It works really well. We also have heated seats as well on this leather interior. Over to the left, we have all the controls to control four-wheel low, four-wheel high. Very, very easy to use. There is also a sport mode. There's a sport mode and a towing mode. I don't know why you would actually need that on this type of vehicle, a sport mode. I didn't feel it actually do anything on the road. We actually have a slightly larger infotainment system. I'm not going to harp on it too long. I think GM's infotainment, the MyLink system, is pretty darn easy to use. I don't love it quite as much as I love my Ford Touch. I think the buttons are a little bit bigger and it's a little more responsive. But as you can see, everything's moving along fine. I've noticed this one that it can lag every once in a while. It's not too noticeable, but the touchscreen's really, really easy to use, and it does have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Now, moving below it, you've got these big old buttons. Everything's real easy. You don't have to use your finger. If you want to just punch it, you can activate it. All these buttons are real easy. They can all be used with your fists. They're real easy, real big. All of the knobs are covered in sort of this rubber texture. Real trucky, real gutsy feel to all of them. Real easy to hit. I think if you're the type of person that needs to wear gloves on a work site and get into your truck and turn on a button, without having to worry about it, you're going to like the way that this is all laid out. You even have this big row of buttons here for things like the parking sensors, the start stop. You can drop the tailgate from here because, of course, we have a power tailgate, which I'll show you later. Traction control, you can turn on all of your power outlets. We do have a whole lot of them because we paid extra for those. We do have our household outlet. We have our normal car charger, and then we have our USB and USB-C, which is pretty interesting. Chevy embracing USB-C pretty early. And as you can see, we have a huge center console here with a lot of room, and that is far from the only storage in this truck, and you better believe we're gonna count them all. Back here, there's not too much to talk about, but one of the changes for 2019 is that they've actually made the Silverado longer, and that's for two reasons. One is to increase the legroom here, and I'm sitting behind where I actually drive, and my knees are nowhere near touching, although I'm not that big of a guy, but you'll definitely find space here. And one of the things with pickup trucks is the backrest is usually really flat and upright. This one actually allows you to lean back a pretty good amount, so you can sit back here for a pretty decently long time. We do have two cup holders right here, as well as two additional ones up front. I also have a regular USB port and a USB-C to charge up all of my devices. And the other reason why the Silverado is longer for 2019 is to accommodate more bed space. So let's go take a look at that now. And of course, one of the most important things when you buy any pickup truck is bed space. We actually have the normal bed here. You can actually get one that's about 10 inches longer than this. I can't imagine this truck being any longer. It is already a nightmare to park. And one of the things that Chevy did on the 2019 update for the Silverado is all of the swing open components, so the bed and the doors, those are all made of aluminum now, so they're a lot lighter. So I have on my key fob here, just do a double tap, and the bed will automatically drop down. I don't have to be burdened with pulling a big heavy handle. And then when I need to go put it up, super light, I can do it one-handed. It is really, really light. If I want to drop it down without using the key, I have a touch button right here. Just push that. The bed will drop down just like it did before. It's really well damped. And if you just sort of play around with this thing, it is super light, really easy to use. Anybody could just close it really easily. And if you do need to get up here, there is an integrated step built into the bumper that you can use to sort of lift yourself up into it. It's not that easy, and you're not exactly graceful when doing it, especially since this one is 2 inches taller on the Trail Boss trim. So not that easy to get up there. I wish they would have had a more integrated step in the tailgate as Ford does, but it works, it functions, it's no big deal. And so now let's go check around the front of this truck, where the redesign has a lot of people really debating on whether this is a good looking truck. So up front is where you're going to notice the biggest changes on the 2019 Silverado, especially on this, the LT Trail Boss trim. That's why we have the black Chevy bow tie, this whole black grille. It's always going to be black. I don't think white is the best color to go along with this. I think the red looks a lot better, or if you just order a black truck and it's all blacked out, it definitely looks a lot more sinister. But even in this white, this is properly aggressive. The Trail Boss is definitely the most aggressive looking trim. You can see with all of the black, you have the integrated headlights. Chevy has really went bold with this. You can kind of see this on the new Camaro, but I've had a lot of people tell me that they like the way that this looks a lot more than how it was executed on the Camaro. Some people really don't like it, so it's kind of just a matter of preference, but it is pretty aggressive. You've got the red tow hooks here because we have the Z71 off-road package, which of course comes standard on all Trail Boss trims. But you can see that Chevy just took some shots here and made a very different looking truck. The headlights are sort of integrated with the grille, so it's all kind of one piece here. If you want a more traditional looking truck, you're going to want to go for the GMC Sierra. That looks more like a traditional truck from last year, from 2018, but the Silverado, especially this Trail Boss one, is just a very, very unique looking truck. Before I leave you, let's price out our 2019 Chevy Silverado LT Trail Boss. That is the upper of the Trail Boss trims. There's actually a lower trim model called the Custom Trail Boss. So this LT Trail Boss comes with a little bit more stuff. It has the V8 5.3 liter engine as standard. That's going to start at $48,300. Although this tester model here does have about $7,000 worth of optional extras. They aren't too expensive individually, but they do add up to a pretty sizable sum. So let's talk about the convenience package with bucket seats. That's about $1,655. Not too bad. That's going to get you bucket seats in the front with dual zone automatic climate control, a 10-way driver seat, heated steering wheel, heated front seats, and a tilt and telescoping steering wheel. Not bad. You're also going to get 2 front row USB ports for charging. The convenience package 2 for $1,420 adds a universal home garage door opener, power sliding rear window with defogger, a 12-volt power outlet. You're going to get the larger infotainment screen, 2 USB ports, and an SD card reader, which live in the center console, Sirius XM radio, HD rear vision camera, and a Bose surround sound premium audio system. That's a lot of stuff for $1,400. Leather package is $985. That's going to get you leather seating surfaces. You're also going to get those off-road steps. Those are about $900. And the safety package is a pretty good bargain at $890 for front and rear park assist and lane change assist with blind spot warning alert. And we have a couple other things on this truck too, bringing the as tested price to $56,790, which is pretty darn expensive if you think about it. It is bordering on Raptor territory, base Raptor territory. I did play around with the Raptor configurator, and if you do add all of the stuff that's on this truck on a Raptor, you're touching $70,000. So it is not a direct comparison. This is not a full Raptor truck. It's nowhere near as fast as a Raptor, but as we've seen on this test, it can do the off-roady stuff just fine. And if $56,000 is a bit steep for you, they do a lower trim model called the Custom Trail Boss. It's going to look a little different. Instead of having the black bow tie in the front, it's going to have Chevrolet spelled across the front. You're going to have 2 engine options for that, either a smaller V6 or this same 5.3 liter V8, but without direct fuel management, the cylinder deactivation technology, and with a 6-speed automatic transmission instead of an 8-speed. And if you look at that Custom Trail Boss model, you can get into it for around 40 grand, which is a lot more palatable than this $56,000 one if you are a budget-minded customer. And if you've liked this review and you'd like to see more, be sure to subscribe to the Car Buzz YouTube channel and be sure to download our apps on iOS and Android to keep up with all of the latest in news and automotive reviews. Hope you've enjoyed the video. See you next time.